Fall-off-the-bone pork ribs are often considered the epitome of indulgence for carnivores, known for their rich flavor, tender texture, and the satisfying amount of fat they deliver with each bite. Many who follow the carnivore diet celebrate pork ribs as a delicious, fatty, and nutrient-dense choice, offering a feast of protein and fat without the interference of plant-based foods. While there's no denying that pork ribs are mouth-watering and packed with calories, it's important to examine some of the health risks and potential downsides that come with making this indulgent dish a frequent staple in a carnivore diet. One of the main concerns with consuming fall-off-the-bone pork ribs regularly is their high fat content, especially the saturated fats. While fat is an essential nutrient, consuming excessive amounts of saturated fats can have detrimental effects on cardiovascular health. The fat in pork ribs can raise levels of LDL, bad cholesterol in the blood, which can eventually lead to plaque buildup in the arteries, resulting in a condition called atherosclerosis. Over time, this can increase the risk of heart disease, stroke, and other cardiovascular complications. For those with pre-existing heart conditions or a family history of cardiovascular issues, consuming large amounts of fatty cuts like pork ribs could potentially exacerbate these problems and increase the likelihood of developing heart disease. Additionally, the high calorie density of pork ribs can contribute to weight gain if not eaten in moderation, further complicating heart health. Pork ribs are also often prepared and cooked with sauces or seasonings, which can add excess sugar, salt, and artificial ingredients. Many store-bought or restaurant versions of pork ribs are slathered in sugary barbecue sauces, which can introduce large amounts of added sugars into the diet. High sugar intake has been linked to a variety of health issues, including insulin resistance, obesity, and an increased risk of type 2 diabetes. Additionally, the salt content in both the seasoning and sauces can lead to high blood pressure, water retention, and kidney strain. Excessive sodium intake, particularly for individuals already dealing with hypertension, can exacerbate cardiovascular problems and contribute to long-term kidney damage. The consumption of pork ribs also raises concerns about the environmental and ethical aspects of factory farming. While not unique to pork, industrial farming practices often involve inhumane treatment of animals, which may raise moral questions for some individuals. Additionally, factory farming has a significant negative impact on the environment, contributing to deforestation, pollution, and the emission of greenhouse gases. As the demand for pork and other animal products continues to rise, the environmental toll of large-scale meat production increases, further contributing to the degradation of natural ecosystems. For those who are concerned about sustainability and animal welfare, consuming pork ribs as a regular part of the diet may not align with their values. Another issue with pork ribs, particularly for those following a strict carnivore diet, is the potential for nutrient imbalances. While pork ribs are rich in protein, they lack essential nutrients that are only found in plant-based foods, such as fiber, antioxidants, and certain vitamins like vitamin C. A diet devoid of fruits, vegetables, and whole grains can lead to digestive issues due to the absence of fiber, such as constipation and bloating. Furthermore, the lack of antioxidants in a carnivore diet means that the body has less protection against oxidative stress and inflammation, which can increase the risk of chronic diseases like cancer, heart disease, and neurodegenerative conditions. Consuming pork ribs in the context of an animal-based diet without balancing the intake of other foods may leave individuals vulnerable to nutrient deficiencies and long-term health complications. Another consideration is the potential for exposure to harmful chemicals, such as hormones, antibiotics, and other residues, when consuming pork that is not sustainably sourced. Factory-farmed pigs are often treated with antibiotics to prevent disease in overcrowded conditions, and they may also be given growth hormones to promote faster weight gain. These substances can remain in the meat and be ingested by consumers, potentially disrupting natural hormone levels, contributing to antibiotic resistance, and increasing the risk of long-term health problems. Choosing pork from animals raised without hormones or antibiotics can help mitigate some of these risks, but it often comes at a significantly higher price, which may make it less feasible for people on a budget. Pork, particularly in the form of ribs, is also relatively high in cholesterol. For individuals with high cholesterol or those at risk for cardiovascular disease, consuming large amounts of cholesterol-rich foods can worsen the situation. High dietary cholesterol has been linked to an increase in LDL cholesterol levels, contributing to the buildup of plaque in the arteries, which can lead to heart disease, stroke, and other health issues. Even if the focus is on eating animal products, it's important to recognize that an overabundance of cholesterol-rich foods like pork ribs could be harmful over time. The preparation methods used to cook pork ribs can also introduce additional risks, particularly if the meat is charred or cooked at high temperatures. Cooking meat, especially fatty cuts like ribs, at high temperatures can produce harmful compounds such as heterocyclic amines, HCAs, and polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, PAHs, both of which have been linked to an increased risk of cancer. The risk is higher when grilling or barbecuing the meat, as the fat drips onto the heat source and creates these potentially carcinogenic substances. While occasional consumption of grilled or barbecued pork ribs may not pose a significant health risk, frequent exposure to these chemicals through regular consumption of heavily charred meat can increase the likelihood of developing cancer over time. For those who are new to the carnivore diet or are considering making pork ribs a regular part of their eating plan, it's important to be aware of the potential downsides of consuming such fatty cuts. The tendency to overconsume high-calorie foods like pork ribs can contribute to weight gain and other metabolic issues, especially when paired with the exclusion of plant-based foods that provide fiber and essential micronutrients. In addition, those following a strict carnivore diet may not be getting a well-rounded spectrum of nutrients, which could lead to deficiencies or imbalances over time. Furthermore, the environmental impact of large-scale pork production and the ethical concerns associated with factory farming may prompt some individuals to reconsider the sustainability of consuming pork ribs regularly. In conclusion, while fall-off-the-bone pork ribs are undeniably a flavorful and indulgent food choice, they come with several health risks and considerations that should not be overlooked. The high fat and cholesterol content, along with the potential for added sugars and excessive sodium, can contribute to cardiovascular issues, weight gain, and other long-term health problems. Additionally, the lack of fiber and essential nutrients from plant-based foods, as well as the risks of harmful contaminants in conventionally raised pork, are important factors to take into account. For those following a carnivore diet, it's important to be mindful of the potential drawbacks of consuming pork ribs regularly and to strive for a balanced and sustainable approach to meat consumption to avoid negative health effects in the future.